How can we apply proper discrimination and judgment in our search for knowledge of the infinite? Srila Śrīdhar Mahārāj. Discrimination may take place in different planes, but it must have a connection with the higher plane. Judgment and discrimination should be in the right plane. Judgment and discrimination come from our side, but our progress depends on the favor of the higher side. It must have that connection, so surrender is required. Then the Lord will approach us and take us up to that higher plane. Somehow we have to persuade the highest authority to favor us. We must invite the higher authority to accept us. It does not depend so much on our own ability, but on our submission and surrender, our hankering for mercy, not our positive capacity, but our negative character, our surrender. As a subject, I cannot make the infinite the object of my discrimination. He is always the super subject. Just a quick pause here to the panel. Just this last phrase and the sentence is like a Vedantic aphorism to me.
Yes. It's the seed of all thinking, if you think about it. Anybody who wants to meditate should start from here.
Just this one sentence. Okay, let me repeat this. And this has our identity, the supreme, and our connection, and His nature. Everything is like right here. Let's read this. Again, back to Guru Mahārāj. As a subject, I cannot make the infinite the object of my discrimination. He is always the super subject. I cannot make God the object of my discrimination. He is super subjective. My position, my attitude must invite the higher authority to come down to my level and help me, favor me. Real discrimination or knowledge should take us to self-surrender. Surrender is necessary to attract the attention of the Lord. Everything depends on His sweet will. He is an autocrat. His sweet will is everything. To attract His sweet will, to increase our negative side, our tendency for surrender, to attract His favor. This will be our real problem if we wish to progress in spiritual life. And to attract the Lord's attention, all our qualifications must be of a negative character. We shall require surrender, submission, humility. So just a quick pause here. I just want to clarify. So those of us maybe who are listening and who are not, so they haven't followed till now. So this is when Param Guru Mahārāj is explaining to us that we're as subject. So our identity and our real self is subjective. Which means that there's two parts of the equation that we've discussed, which is the observer and the observed. So we are the observer actually. And we get confused in this world, in this plane of reality, which is objective. So everything that we see, we objectify. And it's no one's fault, it's just the way it is. This is the construct. We objectify people, we objectify everything, including our own selves. But factually, we are subjective. We are the observer. We are consciousness. So this is what is meant by Param Guru Mahārāj explaining to us that as subject. Because subject can also mean other things. It can connote being a student or so many other things. But here in this context, it means that we are purely subjective. We are subject. So as subject, we cannot. What we try to do is also, when we try to understand divinity, we try to bring God or divinity, we try to look at it as an object. So we objectify it, and then we analyze it, and then we accept it or reject it or pass our judgment, however the case may be. So that is totally wrong, and that is what is pointed out by Param Guru Mahārāj here when he says that as a subject I cannot make the infinite the object of my discrimination. He is always the super subject. So what that means is, a lot of things can be said, but what that really means in this context is that for us, even in our purest of pure states, as pure subjects, we can only be objects to Him. So that's why from His perspective, we can only be objects, whereas He is the super subject. So even in subjectivity, even in consciousness, His identity is unique. That is super subject. And He is always the supreme, the controller. He has dominion over all. Subjective realm and objective realm. All of it.
Can I make a
Please, Arun Prabhu.
question?
Yes.
So in Bhagavad Gita also, Lord Krishna says, talking about what is body, the experiencer of the body is experiencing in the field of that body. And then Sri Krishna says that I am the collection of all fields. I am that super experiencer.
Yes. Very true. He says you experience your field, and every individual experiences their field, whereas I know it all.
Yeah.
And at no point in time or in any phase of spiritual evolution does the individual soul actually become that.
And Prabhu, I think also what Sri Maharaj is explaining here is this concept that he gives this full-fledged theism. Because I believe when he's talking about this discriminating attitude of the jiva souls, even the scriptures and other religions give this discriminating attitude towards the Lord. You know, you pray for this and He will give you that. You do this fire sacrifice and you will get that. So it seems like even in certain level of religion and scriptures, there's this attitude that the Lord is an object because I can do something and I will get something in return.
True.
And then the Śrīdhar Mahārāj is exploding that and saying, no, he's above all that.
Right. So he is very true, Chinmoy Prabhu, because to understand, as he's explaining to us, we can only understand what he's explaining. And Bhagavad Tattva, or like you're saying, the nature of the Supreme Essence is not to be objectified, as I would objectify anything else of this world. So he's saying to approach and to understand, you have to have his grace. With this understanding that there is no way that I can approach with knowledge, that I am so knowledgeable and I'm so able, I have such abilities that I can understand and I can grasp the Supreme Essence within here, or within my sphere of understanding in any way whatsoever. He says it's just not possible. So don't even try. It's a fool's errand. The only way that we can understand is by grace and by our negative character. And what he means by that is our humility and surrender. Because always remember, ability is not an attribute of consciousness. Choice is. Always. So we're subjective. If we employ choices, right choices versus ability, then we can understand something about subjectivity and super subject. Then there is some hope. But if we only try to employ our raw discrimination and knowledge, then there is no hope. What do we... Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Because you were mentioning the negative qualities that we are trying to develop within ourselves. I'm just trying to curious as how he's using the word negative. Because I don't think we necessarily would consider, at least we, Vaishnavas, devotees, wouldn't consider submission, humility, tolerance, those wouldn't be negative qualities.
So that's a great question, because I myself also was kind of curious on that. And the way I see it is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe it requires further finer understanding, but the super subjective realm he considers the positive, and us are qualities that attract, because opposites attract. So he's using this parallelism of the positive and the negative being attractive. That's why he terms those qualities that we have that attract the Supreme Positive as negative. So it's contextual. It doesn't absolutely mean that those qualities are negative. They're certainly not. They're the most desirable. Tolerance, humility, respect for all. That's the highest mantra if we have to be successful in progress, in making any progress in spiritual life. We've been told this again and again, and so many times, and repetition for us, so that it can somehow get into our heart by Srila Govinda Mahārāj. You hear any of his lectures, there's so many lectures, he will always say this: humility, tolerance, offering respects to all. Humility, tolerance, offering respects to all, even where we know it is not deserved. So he says, amanina manadin. That part, Govinda Mahārāj explains very beautifully. Amanina manadin. So first level is amanina manadin, is not expecting any man or any respect for one's own self and offering it to others. That is the first level meaning of amanina manadin. Right? But the second level meaning he explained is amanina manadin also means to offer respect in that direction where we know or where we feel inside it's not deserved, we still offer it. That is amanina manadin. And then kirtaniya sadahari. Right? So those qualities, those are not absolutely negative. Those are so desirable that I would love to have all of those. But in this context, Param Guru Maharaj is using those and saying that they're negative because they attract the positive. So that is my a little understanding. I don't know. Maybe there's more to it, but that's what I understand.
Nice explanation, Jairamji.
Welcome, Anilji. Namaskar. Good to have you. So we go. Should we continue?
Yes.
Okay. Back to Param Guru Maharaj. And to attract the Lord's attention, all our qualifications must be of a negative character. We shall require surrender, submission, humility. And then we can press our position by praying, "O my Lord, I am in the worst need. Without your grace, I can't stand. I am helpless. I cannot endure without your favor." That sort of hankering, earnestness, and necessity for His mercy will help us. In other words, we are to improve our negative character, and in that way we shall attract the positive, Krishna. Right? Then we shall develop proper discrimination, for at that time our subjective character will be to act only as His agent. He will inspire from within in whatever we do. Our discrimination will be utilized in carrying out His order. It will not be possible for us to have any separate interest, any original discrimination. I will carry out His order, or the order of the highest officer of the Supreme Lord. I may use my discrimination about how to make the lower arrangements in carrying out that order. But towards the Lord, who is higher than me, my attitude will always be one of submission, surrender, obedience, allegiance, unconditional slavery. The slave mentality will help us in entering that plane. If we truly feel ourselves to be low and in want, then the supply of mercy will come from the higher plane. This should always be the tenor of our thought, high and low, subjective and objective. And Krishna is not subject to any rule. He is an autocrat. These are the data we must keep in our mind always. Everything moves according to His sweet will. Our problem then is how to draw his attention. This will be possible only by increasing our negative tendency, by proving to him in a bona fide way that I am the most needy. At that time, we shall develop proper discrimination and knowledge. That is, our discrimination will be utilized in carrying out his order. Question. In the Upanishad, there is a mantra. Vidyam chavidyayam chayas tad vedo bhayam sa avidyaya mrityum tirtava vidyamritam ashnate. The translation has been given by Śrīpad Bhaktivedanta Mahārāj as follows. Only one who can learn the process of nescience and that of transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. What does he mean by learning the process of nescience and that of knowledge side by side? Srila Śrīdhar Mahārāj. One is negative and another is positive. Knowledge means to know what is false and to leave that, and to recognize what is true and to accept that. Do you follow? To cultivate an understanding about falsehood and truth means to understand this is false and we must reject it. This is truth, I must accept it. In that way, this verse may be understood. To know the bad, to culture the bad, means to know when a thing is bad and to reject it. And to culture the truth means to accept it. Not that culture means that we should culture ignorance in order to have it. What is encouraged here is this, in this mantra, is rejection of falsehood and acceptance of truth. Quick pause here. I'm just curious. Can anyone in the panel think of any verse that deals with truth and falsehood? Or even part of the verse or the mantra?
The only thing that comes to my mind is where Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, the true yogi, he is awake, and the conditioned soul is asleep. And
right. Good. That's one.
Well, the other one is Asatoma Sadgamaya.
Yes, that's another one. How about Satyamev Jayate? Satyamev Jayate Nannatam. Nannatam means not falsehood. Nannatam Satyena Pantha Vitato Devayana. Yena Kramantya Rishayo Hayapta Kama. Yatra tat Sattasya Paramam Nidhanam. Right? That is the verse. Very famous. Satyamev Jayate. The truth is always victorious, not falsehood. Nanratam.
And so if I may just say for the benefit of people who may be watching this as a recording, this is the constitutional emblem to the state of India, is Satyamev Jayate. That one word is in every document.
That's why I brought it up. Satyamev Jayate Nannatam. Satyena Pantha Vithato Devayana. So here, as in Upanishads, see how beautifully it is indirectly saying that And that truth has laid out the various paths leading to gods and goddesses. Pantha vitato devayana. So clear difference between that super subject and the various levels of worship. Yena kramantya rishayo hayapta kama. And that supreme absolute, that truth, encourages even those sages who are hayapta kama, who are completely satisfied, self-satisfied, right? To continue their pursuit for that ultimate treasure who resides. And there is a place that he resides and you can go join him. See how indirectly it is pointing to Vrindavan. Rishayo hayapta kama yatra tat sattasya paramam nidhanam. That sattasya paramam nidhanam, you go and you still continue your search even though you are self-satisfied, atmarama, but you continue your search. It doesn't mention Krishna's name, but this is for Krishna. Sattameva jayate. And like you said, Arun Prabhu, it's on every document. Official document. And it's actually part of the Constitution, which hasn't been changed yet. So I just thought I'd discuss that with you just since it came up. Okay, back to Param Guru Maharaj. This is bad, this is hopeless, this is the defects of Maya should be analyzed. We must know, oh, this is Maya, this is bad, this is hopeless, this is undesirable. We must know to avoid these things. We must reject nescience and we shall try to attain science, knowledge. We shall try to understand the bright side and aim for the light. To accept it more and more and progress towards truth. A little pause here. Arun Prabhu said, Asato ma satgamay, tamso ma jyotirgamay. So tamso is, I'm getting feedback from some place. One of your mics. Okay, it's gone. So asato ma satgamay. And then tamso ma jyotirgamay, from darkness to the path of light. And mrityor ma amritam gamay. From being in the cycle of birth and death, mrityor, from like the conception of end and death, to immortality, amritam gamay, or nectar. Okay, back to Param Guru Maharaj. Question. A 15th century German Catholic philosopher, Nicholas of Cusa, is it Cusa? C-U-S-A? Okay, I'll just...
Yeah?
Please.
Cusa?
Cusa?
German Catholic. No, not too sure.
Okay, so yeah, if someone wants to correct, please go ahead. But Nicholas of Cusa taught the doctrine of learned ignorance. How would that compare to Vaishnava philosophy? A 15th century German Catholic philosopher, Nicholas of Cusa, taught the doctrine of learned ignorance. How would that compare to Vaishnava philosophy? That's the question. Param Guru Maharaj. We may accept the bright side. Noble ignorance in our view is Gyan Shunna Bhakti, knowledge-free devotion. Noble ignorance means not to attempt to calculate in this world, but to surrender, to lose our faith in calculation, in our subjective capacity of calculation, and to surrender to the Supreme. We may interpret Jnana Shunya Bhakti like that: learned ignorance. Learned ignorance is when learning understands its own limit. When one realizes, I'm finite, my learning is also finite. Learning cannot make me a bona fide inquirer about the infinite. It is better to surrender to the infinite and let Him work within us for our best interest. Submission, surrender to the infinite, is the highest reach of learning. Learned ignorance means to realize that we can't know the infinite. If He makes Himself known to us, then we can know Him, otherwise not. Question. Nicholas of Cusa said, God is inconceivable by thought. What do you say? Srila Śrīdhar Mahārāj. Yes. Only through devotion and by His grace may God be known. Our cultivation of knowledge won't give us God. That is the failure of knowledge. Investigation about God, the infinite. Only His grace can give Him. We have to come to the side of devotion and to do away with knowledge. Our attempts to make much of the knowledge will be stopped when coming in connection with the infinite. Knowledge has got its limit, and when knowledge fails, faith begins. Knowledge fails and faith develops. You must develop faith and give up hope in knowledge. A research laboratory cannot give you God. When the Russian cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin returned from space, an old lady inquired from him, "You went so high. Have you seen God there?" But he was an atheist. He said, "God is like a horse drawing our cart. What do you think about God for? We use God in our service." With our knowledge and our research science, we have forced God to serve us. This is the proud boast of science. We have engaged God in our service and we are above God, superior to God. God is our creation. As if He is the creation of a particular half-mad section of society.
He fits the description of Rakṣhak as given in Bhagavad Gita.
Ishwaroham aham bhogi siddhoham balavan sukhi. Aso maya hana shatru hanishyecha paranapi Ishwaroham aham bhogi siddhoham balavan sukhi. That is the demoniac mentality. I have gotten rid of so many enemies today, and tomorrow I will get rid of even more. Hanishyecha paranapi. Ishwaro, I am God, or I am the center of this universe. Ishwaroham aham yogi, Ishwaroham aham bhogi, and I am the consumer, the enjoyer. Siddhoham, I am perfect. What are you talking about, Arun Prabhu? I'm perfect. And Siddhoham Balwan. I am the most capable. I can lift mountains. And Sukhi, I'm so happy. Look at me. That is the demoniac mentality. And this how Param Guru Maharaj has explained fits exactly that. Like you said, Arun Prabhu, that's what made you think of this, right? How perfectly it is explained in the scripture, and how this question and how the description of this conversation between Gagarin and the old lady exemplifies that. Half-mad section of society. That we have employed God in our service. We will ask Him for things and He will supply. He will be our supplier. He will supply it. Otherwise, we reject Him. We'll get some other God.
It's the same thing as the modern farming. Oh, we don't have to worry about the rain god.
Yeah.
We will drill the water out
Yeah.
and defeat the rain god. We are independent of them.
Yeah. I've heard that for so long. Science has today invented and reached irrigation techniques that are so perfect that there's no need for rain. And look at the weather people right now. They're all praying on their knees like, hey, it's going to rain. Finally, it's going to rain in California. Where are your irrigation systems? You know, I mean, the Lexington Reservoir is all like empty, and people are like, oh, we need some rain. Really? Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyad anna sambhava yagyad bhavanti parjanyo yagya karma samudbhava. This is the chain. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita. You cannot change it. You cannot alter it. You can only submit to it, and understand it.
Those people who are just thinking of only science, right? They don't know that whatever they are getting in terms of science, it's all because of the supreme will, right?
That's right.
Separate interests.
Exactly. Jai, Anil ji ki jai. He said those words, separate interest. Now officially, you have been accepted into this Param Guru Maharaj and Gurudev society. You know, like when you say separate interest like that, that is a definite huge positive, Anil ji. Namaskar, Preeti ji. And how is Bikram ji? How is Bikram ji doing?
Yes, he's doing good.
All right, excellent.
I was to buy something.
Excellent.
No, he wants to work, okay.
He's working. All right.
He went for work.
Okay.
She knows better than me.
All
No,
right.
you don't went on the door, okay?
Okay, so this is the last part. I'm gonna just go through the last part here, so then we can do some discussion if need be. Okay, question. Nicholas of Cusa also taught that in God, opposites coincide. Opposites, smallest and greatest, come together in God. What is your understanding? Srila Śrīdhar Mahārāj. Not only big and small, but even good and bad. Even anti-parties, everything is harmonized in God. Good, bad, friend, enemy, everything is harmonized and accommodated there. And they lose their poison. All becomes good. He is the all accommodating, all harmonizing, all adjusting principle, both directly and indirectly. Thesis and antithesis find their highest synthesis in the Krishna conception of divinity. Jai Param Guru Mahārāj ki.
Yeah.
I just want to repeat that last beautiful part. He is the all accommodating, all harmonizing, all adjusting principle, both directly and indirectly. Thesis and antithesis find their highest synthesis in the Krishna conception of divinity. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, can I just make a
Please,
quick
please, please,
observation?
please.
So earlier, Param Guru Maharaj talks about proper discrimination. And that discrimination is really for the lower plane. And not many people even think, the scientists, philosophers, or who have you, they have only one tool. That is some discrimination that comes from this body that is wrapped around us. And their way of understanding and solving the problem is like a carpenter, or it's like a person who only has hammer in his toolkit, and then everything around him, all problems look like a nail, where I can use this hammer and then make it straight or fix it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not often that people want to even step back and to understand this instrument of discrimination. What is the purpose? As he himself says, you cannot use this tool to objectify and understand God. If only people had this basic insight given as a mercy by somebody, some Vaishnava, their mental opinion horizons will open up to such great unrestricted understanding, I would say, as Param Guru Maharaj is saying, that this tool of discrimination should be only used to administer and live in the material world. And we must surrender to the Supreme Being so that we can have some mercy, to have some insight, to link and understanding of Bhagwan.
Jai. Absolutely.
Very good.
Any other observations, please?
Well, I could see the difficulty people have, because scientists, they can create a very big hammer, like a particle collider that's the size of a city.
Yeah.
And they're going to say, we will find God. That is their giant hammer now.
That's the Thor's hammer, yes. Very nicely said. Ready? So let me bring on the elite Kirtan group, EKG. Please give me a couple of minutes.
Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda.
Bhajan Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda.
Yadeta Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hari Haraya Namah Krishnaya Yadavaya Namaha.
Hari Haraya
Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan.
Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan.
Śrīdhari Gopinatha Madana Mohan.
Śrīdhari Gopinath Madana.
Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Chandra.
Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Chandra.
Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Vrinda.
Jaya Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath.
Jaya Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath.
Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath.
Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath.
Ichhai Gosai Kori Charana Vandan.
Ichhai Gosai Kori Charana Vandan.
Jahan Hote Vignana Shabishta Puran.
Jahan Hote Vignana Shabishta Puran.
Ichhai Gosai Jan Muitara Das.
Ichhai Gosai Jan Muitara Das.
Tasavara Padarenu Mora Panchagras.
Tasavara Padarenu Mora Panchagras.
Tandera Charana Se Vibhakta Sane Vas.
Tandera Charana Se Vibhakta Sane Vas.
Jana me mora ei abhilash.
Jana me abhilash.
Ichhai Gosai Jabe Braja Koila Bas.
Ichhai Gosai Jabe Braja Koila Bas.
Shri Shri Radha Krishna Nitya Leela Korila Prakash.
Shri Radha Krishna Nitya Leela Korila Prakash.
Anand Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan.
Anand Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan.
Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majai Aman.
Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majai Aman.
Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyas.
Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyas.
Hari Nam Sankirtana Kohe Narottama Das.
Hari Nam Sankirtana Kohe Narottama Das.
Hari Haraya Namah Krishna Yadavaya Namaha.
Hari Haraya Namah Krishna Yadavaya Namaha.
Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha.
Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev.
Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev.
Jagoranga Sundar, Jagoranga Sundar, Jagoranga Sundar, Jagoranga Sundar.
Jai Gauranga Sundar, Jai Gauranga Sundar, Jai Gauranga Sundar.
Joy. All right, Anika, please take it away.
गोविंद सुंदर गिरदार गोपीलाल जी की जय।
Joy.
जय ओम देव गोसाई महाराज की जय।
Joy.
जय ओम भक्ति भक्ति रसक देव गोसाई महाराज की जय।
Joy.
जय ओम परमहंसा पर भक्ति नाथ सवासी ठाकुर की जय।
Joy.
जय ओम किशोरदास बाबू महाराज की जय।
Joy.
जय ओम श्रीराम भक्ति विद्यानाथ ठाकुर की जय।
Joy.
जय ओम जगन्नाथ दास बाबू महाराज की जय।
Joy.
श्री पनु गुरु की जय।
Joy.
नमस्कार हरिदास ठाकुर की जय।
Joy.
अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय।
Joy.
श्री बलदेव विद्या भूषण की जय।
Joy.
श्री विश्वनाथ ठाकुर की जय।
Joy.
श्री नरोत्तम श्याम वैष्णव ठाकुर की जय।
Joy.
श्री रविंद्र दास ठाकुर की जय।
Joy.
श्री कृष्ण कविराज की जय।
Joy.
सप्रसाद श्री नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय।
Joy.
सप्रसाद श्री महाप्रभु की जय।
Joy.
जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधे कुंद गिरधार गोवर्धन की जय।
Joy.
श्री लक्ष्मी बरदेवा की जय।
Joy.
श्री भक्ति विघ्न विनाशाय श्री नरसिम्हा देवा की जय। भक्त प्रभु महाराज की जय।
Joy.
महारानी की जय।
Joy.
गंगा जमुना जी की जय।
Joy.
ग्रंथराज कृष्ण भगवतम चैतन्य श्यामास्त्र की जय।
Joy.
विश्व राज्य सभा की जय।
Joy.
अपराध श्री चैतन्य मास की जय।
Joy.
तेजस्वी मास की जय।
Joy.
श्री चैतन्य सरस्वती मास की जय।
Joy.
विश्व कबीर सजीव मास की जय।
Joy.
श्री रमायपुर की जय।
Joy.
श्री रमनापुर की जय।
Joy.
विनवानपुर सिद्धांत धाम की जय।
Joy.
बलदेव सुभद्र जमुना जी की जय।
Joy.
श्री गोविंद कुंड की जय।
Joy.
श्री सरी शिवा गंगा जी की जय।
Joy.
संवेद वैष्णव मंडल की जय।
Joy.
संवेद भक्त विंद की जय।
Joy.
करुणानंद पीतान की जय।
Joy.
Hari
Hari Hari Bol. Shri
Jairam Prabhu ki jai.
Shri Bikram Preeti ji and Anika ki jai. Shripad Arun Krishna Prabhu ki jai. Shripad Chinmoy Dev Prabhu ki jai. Anil ji ki jai. Shama ji ki jai. Sangeeta ji ki jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Acharya Brind ki jai. Srila Bhakti Pavan Janardhan Mahārāj ki jai. Srila Bhakti Nirmala Acharya Mahārāj ki jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Sannyasi Brind ki jai. Nittai Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol. Hari Hari.
Kirtan Group ki jai.
Jai.
Didi.
Jai.